I really like this textbook by Mark Anshel, Applied Health, Fitness, Psychology. And as we jump into chapter one, he talks about and he draws upon some research for the National Center of Health Statistics in 2010. And he says here on page four that for the first time in U.S. history, children today will live shorter lives than their parents, mainly due to obesity and the resultant type 2 diabetes, which shortens lifespan. I don't think it can be denied at all what these obesity trends have looked like over the last 30 years. I love this YouTube video that paints a picture of what has been occurring across the United States over the last 30 years. And I'll just let this kind of play in the background, but just kind of notice what the trends are, not only across the United States, but particularly in Cumberland University. We're in Middle Tennessee, so look at what those trends are in certain parts of the country, particularly the southeastern United States. The Centers of Disease Control, reported in 2014 that approximately 1 out of 5 U.S. adults engages in the recommended, meets the recommendations for physical activity. Generally, those recommendations follow the American College of Sports Medicine's recommendations for physical activity, which is 3 to 5 days per week for at least 30 minutes of moderate to intense exercise, or about 150 minutes per week. And those trends aren't just occurring in the United States. When we look at the trends that are how that's playing out in Canada as well. According to the Canadian Medical Association Journal, about 51% of Canadians do not achieve enough physical activity. So when we look at these trends, across westernized countries, it's not shocking at all that you know that physical activity is a modifiable risk factor for a wide range of physical diseases, from coronary heart disease to stroke to diabetes to various forms of cancer. Exercise has been shown to have positive effects on managing weight. But as well, and I really do like what Anshel does, is he opens chapter one with this review of some of the psychological benefits of exercise. From reducing stress to helping alleviate anxiety, improving mood. And what I really like that he does when he talks about improving mood is he provides some mechanisms or some hypotheses on why does exercise improve mood. For example, one thought is, this distraction hypothesis. And I think all of us can kind of relate to this, that sometimes when we're stressed or we're, not feeling like ourselves, sometimes when we can get away, get our mind off of the stressor, when we come back to it, an hour later, hours later, a day later, I mean, the stress isn't as overwhelming. So sometimes going for a run or going to the gym and hitting the weights for a half hour or an hour or more, when we come back, that stress again, it doesn't hit us as hard, or the thermogenesis hypothesis. One thought is that as we increase core body temperature and through the increased blood flow, uh, to the muscles throughout the body and other soft tissue, that increased body temperature slightly has a relaxing or a calming effect on humans. Um, and then the last one that I thought was particularly interesting that he pointed out, and then I'll add one more that I've come across in my research. He talks about the social interaction hypothesis that, as people interact with one another, and we are human beings who are social creatures. And as we interact with one another and we enjoy our environment, we enjoy being around other people, we tend to forget our worries. So it's kind of related to the distraction hypothesis, but it does bring in this idea of social support and how important it is to be around other people. But I think one other hypothesis that Anshel left out I think has some validity to this idea of improving mood and relaxing people, and particularly in reducing stress, reducing anxiety. Think about this. The effects that exercise has on the human body sort of resemble many of the same experiences that people feel physically when they experience anxiety. So exercise increases heart rate and respiration and sweat response, those sort of things. And when people experience these things that also have anxiety, people tend to begin to tolerate those physiological states more appropriately, and they can adapt to those physical states. And therefore, one of the ideas with how exercise can reduce anxiety, reduce stress, is that people learn to tolerate those physical sensations of increased heart rate, increased respiration, the sweat response, that physical arousal, that activation of the body. And as they can tolerate that, when people experience anxiety and they experience the same physiological states, the human mind begins to reinterpret those physical states, therefore reducing the anxiety. Angela also does a really nice job, I think, of talking about how there's the psychological benefit of improved cognitive function. And while he defines cognitive function as the processing, the detecting, interpreting, storing, determining, and acting at the proper speed, accuracy, and efficiency, that's a wordy definition. But some of the things that he calls attention to that describe cognitive function. This has to do with a person's ability to concentrate or a person's attentional focus, how a person moves short-term memories to long-term memory, and how in the processes of retrieving those long-term memories. Other executive and motor control functions across the lifespan, from early childhood to adulthood, and then in later adulthood. And exercise has been shown to have a particularly strong effect on cognitive function and academic achievement in children. This is a really interesting review that was published by the American College of Sports Medicine. Forget exactly when this was published, back in 2016. One of the things that came about from this review is that, particularly in children, is even the benefits of a single bout of exercise on cognitive function. While there certainly are more chronic benefits in engaging in prolonged exercise over a period of time, that even when kids engage in exercise for a single session, that can improve their ability to transfer information from short-term to long-term memory. Their ability to retrieve that information from long-term memory, their decision-making skills, and other executive function skills, their ability to concentrate in class. There's actually a really good, a great book out there by Dr. Rady, and it's called Exercise is Medicine. there was a school district in Chicago, Illinois, and they had groups of kids in this school district, and some of the kids would exercise before class and some of the kids wouldn't. Now, there was a great deal of money that was put into the school district in order to get cardiovascular equipment like ellipticals and treadmills and that sort of thing. Well, kids could come in before class if they were in that particular group, and they would exercise. They would do the elliptical, they would do the treadmill machine for a certain amount of time before class. And interestingly enough, those kids tend to outperform the other kids that didn't do physical activity on standardized tests. Their behavior was better in class. They were able to concentrate more effectively. And like I said, their academic scores, their standardized test scores improved compared to their peers. With all of these, health benefits from the physical to the psychological, why don't people exercise? Why don't more people exercise? We already covered some of the statistics, with only 1 in 5 U.S. adults engaging in the proper amount of physical activity. And even to our neighbors to the north in Canada, 51% being inactive, according to the Canadian Medical Association journal. And for our statistics here in the United States, that's been published by the Centers for Disease Control. So we know that most people aren't engaging in enough physical activity, but why? Why don't they engage in enough physical activity? Anshel actually tries to tackle this, and it's an incredibly complex idea, but I think there's a lot of degree of validity in what he's discussing here on page 13. He talks about weighing the immediate versus long-term benefits or consequences of exercise. There's a great demotivator poster out there through Despair.Inc. that talks about procrastination. And it says that hard work always pays off in the future, but procrastination always pays off right now. And I think that that's particularly true. And that's in a lot of ways in how we as human beings work and how we operate, and what Anshel's kind of drawing upon and is really kind of borrowing from behavioral economics, this idea of hyperbolic discounting. And in other words, we say here that humans show a preference for the reward that arrives sooner than later. Humans tend to discount the value of the later reward by a factor that increases with the length of the delay. So in other words, if I offered you $100 right now, or I said that you would, in 10 years, I would give you $1,000. Most people would probably say, yeah, $1,000. Well, yeah, $1,000 is more than $100, but I want that money right now. I don't want to wait 10 years for $1,000. There's actually a really interesting psychology study on this with delayed gratification on the kind of a marshmallow experiment where psychologists put little kids, 3, 4, 5-year-olds in a room, and they told them, they placed one marshmallow in front of them. And they told them that they would leave that marshmallow right where it's at, and the experimenter would leave. That when the experimenter came back, if the marshmallow was still there, they would give the kid 2 marshmallows. And so you see these kids, just going through agony, waiting and trying to delay gratification, waiting for this researcher to come back and give them 2 marshmallows. Many of the kids snapped and would eat the marshmallow right away. Many would, I just churn over this, this decision of should they wait? You can just see the agony on these kids' faces. But what this has to do with, exercise and leading and, engaging in healthy habits is it's so easy for us as human beings to choose the immediate gratification of sleeping in or eating fast food or not exercising over getting up off the couch, going for that run, going to the gym. The work that it takes to put in on a daily basis to lead a healthy lifestyle is really challenging for a lot of people. So, I think when we look at why people don't exercise, why we choose these unhealthy behaviors, it's not simply to say that somebody is lazy. It's essentially coming down to that most people choose a value system that rewards immediate values versus and delaying reward for values that might come to fruition until sometime down the line in the evening. We'll take that burger and fries on the way home from work instead of doing a better job of packing some late afternoon snacks to be able to curb that hunger. We'll sleep in the morning instead of getting up and going for that walk with the dog, which we know would benefit us and most certainly benefit the dog. We do these things, and there's a lot of truth to what Anshel is talking about in delayed gratification and how difficult that is. Especially when we're talking about behavioral change, that we have this particular window of vulnerability. That it's a period of time when we seem to be most vulnerable to abandoning our goals. So if I have the goal to get in better shape, that I want to lose 10 pounds, and that I need, in order to be able to do that, I need to cut out fast food, I need to cut out caffeine, or at least reduce how often I'm eating, cut back on how often I'm eating fast food, how much caffeine I'm consuming, and I need to go exercise more. That there are particular periods of time or windows of vulnerability when I'm more impulsive. And so what can we do to keep people or help people, avoid driving home from work and stopping at that fast food restaurant, or, hitting that 2 o'clock in the afternoon crash and jumping out of your office and running over to the vending machine to grab a coffee or a soda? How can we help people, address that window of vulnerability, those times where I shouldn't say that moment of weakness, but that period of time where they're going to let that goal slip. So here's some things that we can do, some practical suggestions. We can remove the stimulus from the environment. So for example, if somebody keeps extra sodas in their office, maybe taking those out, or going into the pantry at home and clearing out all the junk food. Remove the stimulus, remove the temptation. We can increase the delay option. When it comes to healthy eating, there's a reason why when we see single serving packets, for example, of chips in a larger box, so they'll put those 100-calorie packets. Well, research has shown that people that eat those 100-calorie packets are less likely to then go open up another packet because of the amount of time that it takes to eat that one packet and then go open another packet, versus having a big bag of chips and you can just sit there and eat and eat and eat. We can use public contracts and commitments. Actually, I'm setting up a verbal contract with in your support network, telling somebody else, hey, my goal is to exercise, get up in the morning and walk with the dog 3 days per week. I'm going to do that. I'm going to commit to that. And sometimes just by telling somebody that you're going to do that, it makes us more committed to following through with that goal. Small, frequent rewards. So if that goal is to engage in more physical activity, get up in the morning, walk the dog three days per week, maybe letting myself know that, hey, once I've done that for 3 weeks straight, once I've hit that 9th walk, I'm going to sleep in one day, or I'm going to get myself that new shirt for work that I've always wanted. Small rewards. We're not talking about a trip to the Bahamas here or anything like that, but small, more frequent rewards. Also, just making people aware of that window of vulnerability. Letting clients or patients that you're working with and helping them through this behavioral change process, letting them know that window exists, that there are going to be times where they're going to be tempted, and how we can weather some suggestions like we're just going over here right now. The whole idea is to help people create an environment where they can make healthy choices that are right for them, and helping them move in a proactive, forward-moving way towards their goals. So as we work on some of these behavioral strategies, I think Angel, points this out as well. And, ultimately we're trying to help people, circumvent or better manage almost this cultural addiction that we have to immediate gratification. We want it, we want it, we want it right now. Helping people be able to say no in the moment to something that they want to say yes to down the line. So those are just some thoughts and some reflections on chapter one. I really liked what the direction that Anshel took this chapter. I like that we're able to kind of pull in some additional research. You're going to have the opportunity in this module to look at and respond to a few different discussion posts. So I look forward to seeing where you guys take this discussion and the discussion posts over the next few weeks.